We got nothing on the Colombia updates, nothing about Marco Rubio. We're going to read this really fast, and then we'll get into the meat of it, which is Cuba. Cuba. The real assault was the friends we made along the way. That's so true. The real assault was the friends the left comps made along the way. 6 CIA agents under 25 aliases each on TikTok making edits. So, Poland's president stripped Zelensky of top honor. Karol Nawrocki's decision to strip Volodymyr Zelensky of Poland's highest honor is likely to spark a severe diplomatic crisis between Poland and Ukraine. On Friday, Poland's nationalist president, Karol Nawrocki, announced his decision to strip his Ukrainian counterpart, Volodymyr Zelensky, of Poland's highest award, the Order of the White Eagle. I don't know what this is. I need to learn about this immediately. Tensions between Warsaw and Kiev have been high for days following Zelensky's decision to name a military unit after the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UPA. A World War II militia that Warsaw accuses of participating in a massacre of Poles. They did! UPA was the armed division of the OUNB, the OUN nationalist organization of Ukraine that created a faction under Stepan Bandera, a Nazi collaborator, Nazi collaborator, who wrote to Hitler and was like, "Dear Hitler, please come here, I love you. Yay, we'll help you do the Holocaust." The Nazis showed up in Ukraine and were like, "Bet, we're going to kill all these Polish people here." And then the OUNB under Bandera, the UPA, their army, was like, "We'll help." And then they just slaughtered. Ukraine, I cannot stress this enough. Ukraine had the highest casualty rates from the Holocaust. Like, these people are fucking Nazis. So it's absolutely crazy that they're even saying that Warsaw accuses of participating in the... Accuses? Yeah, they did it. They fucking did it. This is crazy. So, the girls are fighting. I'm going to find you guys this info about the UPA and the OUNB and who they were, linking together. We have an article from the University of Birmingham on this that we're just going to pull up for the people, for anybody new to this topic. There we go. We got a little talking here. All right. The OUN in 1938, which was the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists, split into two factions, the OUN-M, led by Andriy Melnik, and the OUN-B, led by Stepan Bandera. The Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UPA, was a partisan paramilitary organization from 1942 to 1949. And the OUN and the UPA should be seen as two separate, albeit interrelated entities, with OUN units actively participating in the military operations of the UPA. All right? So the attitude of Ukrainian nationalists towards Jews during the Second World War is one of the most contentious and politicized issues. Historians do not agree wildly on the facts. I don't know about that. They say it's misuse and propaganda. No, we know they wrote letters yelling like death to Jews and Russians. They also, though, yes, killed many Polish people. Hold on, we'll find it. So this is the backstory for this. Oh, everything's all current news. Hold on, we gotta go back before. Load internet. Load. Okay. So Poles and Ukrainians talking about the Volhynia massacre. The massacres carried out on the large Polish population were part of an ethnic purge by the Ukrainian Insurgent Army, UPA, in Nazi-occupied Poland between March of 1943 and the end of 1944. Yes. The peak of these killings took place in July and August of 1943. In all, 40 to 60,000 Poles, mainly women and children, were killed in Volhynia, and from 25,000 to around 40,000 in eastern Galicia. Yep. The killings were masterminded by the Bandera faction of the Organization of Ukrainian Nationalists and its military arm, UPA, who aimed to purge all non-Ukrainians from the future Ukrainian state. Yes. And then Hitler and Stepan Bandera had their own girls are fighting moment when, after they killed a lot of ethnic minorities in Ukraine, Stepan Bandera was like, "Thanks, Hitler, you can go now." And Hitler was like, "No, Ukraine's ours," Freudian slip. And Stepan Bandera was like, "No, Ukraine's mine." And then Technically, Hitler arrested Bandera, but he was allowed to stay in soldiers' quarters in a concentration camp and eat and dine with all of the Nazi soldiers. He wasn't kept with the masses. So that's the story of how that came to be. Yeah, this is what's happening. So Zelensky named a military unit of his current. This is too on the nose. So Ukraine takes neo-Nazi battalions, the Azov unit, incorporates them into their military. Azov International, they've got their own website. They're just able to go, here we go. So neo-Nazi units literally become a unit of the Ukrainian National Guard. Like, literally Ukraine, 2013, 2014 coup happens. They've got neo-Nazis who helped to do the coup. They're running around. We're like seeing them get incorporated in real time back then into the Ukrainian National Guard. They become an official part of the Ukrainian military. Neo-Nazis, straight up neo-Nazis who were like, yes, they worship Stepan Bandera. And what does Zelensky do? He names a military unit after the OUMB's insurgent army, UPA. It's like so literal. It's so fucking literal. Zelensky angers Poland with World War II era name for army unit. I mean, this is fucking insane. Yeah, Poland said Zelensky has shown that Ukraine, in terms of mentality, glorifying bandits, murderers from the Ukrainian insurgent army, is not ready to be part of the European family. In the European family, you cannot glorify bandits who murdered women and children, murdered Poles. Yes, they were Nazis. They were Nazis. They were literal fucking Nazis. So, this is very, very obviously true that they did this. So Naraki said Poland has repeatedly called on Ukraine to change the name of the unit, and the Ukrainian side's position has not changed. Also worth noting, remember, Ukraine and the USA vote not to, I don't know why, I'm going to say Nazi propaganda bill. What is this? Here we go. The United States and Ukraine also were, this is what it was, the only two countries to vote against a UN measure designed to discourage the glorification of neo-Nazi symbols. Right? US and Ukraine vote against anti-Nazi resolution repudiated at the UN. The resolution to fight against Nazism, and Ukraine voted no. Why? Because they're out here fucking naming military units after people who helped slaughter ethnic minorities under the Nazi occupation of Ukraine. It's absolutely wild. Alright, so this is crazy. So, in light of President Zelensky's consent to name one of the units of the armed forces of Ukraine, Heroes of the UPA, that's what he fucking called it? This is like calling something Heroes of the SS. This is fucking insane. I have decided to revoke the Order of the White Eagle from the President of Ukraine. Historical truth is not and can never be a bargaining chip. Remembering the victims is a moral obligation of the Polish state, said Nawrocki, who became president last year. However, he added that revoking the honor did not mean Poland would reduce its support for Ukraine in its defense against Russia's full-scale invasion. Neoliberalism is a hell of a fucking drug. It is a hell of a fucking drug. Because where else, I shit you not, except for a neoliberal war to line the pockets of Western capitalists, could you see Israel arming neo-Nazis in Ukraine and Poland supporting Ukraine in their war against Russia, while the military that they are supporting in Ukraine is naming areas of itself after former Nazi collaborators that literally slaughtered people from Poland. Like, this is so crazy. This is like a hate, bigot filled like Spider-Man meme of everyone pointing at each other, but money's just falling down from the sky, so no one's that mad. This is so insane. And this is what happens. So when people are like, how can Ukraine be Nazis? Like, their president's Jewish. It doesn't fucking matter. Kolomoisky is an Israeli billionaire. Who did he arm? The fucking neo-Nazi Azov battalion. Like, He literally funded and armed them as a private militia. And this is when Marx says that history is not about ideology, it's about material conditions. That's why. It will only not make sense to you if you think that ideology is the driving force, right? It's not. It's not the driving force. The driving force at the end of the day is material conditions. These people make money working together. So who cares? You're a Nazi. We're trying to build an Israeli-Jewish ethno-state. Nah. You're glorifying people who slaughtered Poles. We're Polish. Nah. It's upsetting a little bit, but they're still going to work together. Why? Because it materially benefits them to work together. And that's it. This is just absolutely crazy shit. It's insane. Okay, so then they say, we regret that instead of looking for solutions, the Polish side has decided to escalate this conflict to an unacceptable and inappropriate level. No president of another country is going to dictate our history to us. This is the Ukrainian foreign minister, Andrei Svibia. Dictate your history in which your national heroes worked with the Nazis to slaughter ethnic minorities in your borders because you're all fucking Nazis? Yeah, okay. Meanwhile, Poland's Liberal Prime Minister Donald Tusk wrote on X that the conflict between Poland and Ukraine pleases Putin and shocks our allies. Peak liberalism coming in. Oh my God. The liberal has showed up to say, hey guys, remember who this really hurts? Russia. So we should continue to work together to advance our own interests. It is the task of Zelensky and Naraki to calm emotions, not stoke tensions. He said the front lines lie elsewhere. He's the top liberal. Absolute liberalism. Peak liberalism. Stop fighting about Nazis and who killed who. Stop fighting about the slaughter of innocent civilians. And remember, we're all in this to make money. Get your fucking head in the game here, losers. Wild. So the Polish president's move escalates the dispute between the neighbors and allies. Now, Rocky made his decision just days before Poland was set to host the annual Ukraine Recovery Conference in Gdansk. It is now unclear whether Zelensky will attend. The UPA was a military resistance organization that fought for Ukrainian independence against Nazi German and Soviet forces. This is pretty... Technically, at the end, after the UPA operated as the foot soldiers of the fucking Nazis invading Ukraine, then they got into a little skirmish at the end with the Nazis about who would do what after that. But the idea that they are being presented here as an independent third party and not people who helped Hitler do the Holocaust in Ukraine is frankly fucking insane. This is fucking insane. So the UPA has been accused of killing tens of thousands of Poles during World War II, primarily in Nazi-occupied Volhynia and Eastern Galicia. Yeah, because they fucking worked with them. Ukrainians claim both the UPA and Polish underground forces were involved in attacks and reprisals that resulted in significant civilian casualties among Poles and Ukrainians. No, that's not correct. So I feel like I've proven everything we talked about here, but just for anybody who wants more, the UPA, OUNB, Bandera, letter to Hitler, assist Nazis. I'm going to find this just to really, really take it home here for everybody. Okay, so just as a reminder, UPA, armed group of OUNB. OUNB, the Stepan Bandera-led faction of the Ukrainian nationalists. Stepan Bandera, this same Stepan Bandera, this is Le Monde, Ukrainian, who has been glorified in the new Ukraine government post 2013-2014. All right, ultra-nationalist who allied with Nazi Germany during World War II. They were allies. They were allies of Nazi Germany. They were little Hitler foot soldiers running around Ukraine slaughtering minorities. There was also a letter he wrote. Let's see. Bandera. We've got a counterpunch. This is some lefty propaganda for you. So here's some lefty propaganda for you. The Washington Post reported Bandera had only a tactical relationship with Nazi Germany and that his followers were only accused of committing atrocities against Poles and Jews. But no, we know this. He did all of this. Let's see if we can find more about the letter. Okay, so Bandera dreamt of a united Ukraine stretching from the Carpathian Mountains to the Caucasus, a Ukraine free of Russians, Poles, Romanians, and Jews. He said this openly. And he studied the works of this guy who studied Hitler's works to do this. And the OUN was extremely anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish hatred, branded Ukrainian nationhood, blah, 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 blah. This goes on and on and on. So all this is very real, and you guys can look up this article if you would like to learn more about it. This is not something that's hotly debated. Okay? So, yeah, Lenin smash. The fact we still have to mention Bandera and the Azov is all you need to know. If liberalism wasn't compatible with fascism, they would only need to be told one time. No, they keep trying to fucking rebrand this guy. It's insane. They're trying to rebrand him as some sort of Ukrainian national hero. He was literally a fucking Nazi. Like, I do not give a fuck. This man was a Nazi, and this is what they're doing. So, it's pretty crazy. So I love this, though, that the girls are fighting. The contradictions of liberalism continue to compound. Poland and Ukraine fighting over whose brand of ultra right-wing fascism murdered who, and still ultimately at the end of the day deciding it's not that big of a deal because they've got to stop big, mean, scary Russia for reasons that are financially beneficial to the West. Absolutely wild. Liberals really do love rewriting Nazi history. It's absolutely crazy. It's really crazy. A tactical relationship. Yeah, what does that mean? Well, it means the OUN and the UPA and Stepan Bandera killed a bunch of ethnic minorities for Hitler. Very tactical, obviously. Why was it tactical? Because they also wanted to kill the same ethnic minorities. Because they were like, you want to kill Poles, Roma, Romanians, Jews? We want to kill them too. Tactically, we could team up and kill them all together. That was the tactical part of it. Absolutely fucking insane. Yeah, Bo Real Bolshevik. Yeah, every Tuesday we've been going into a deep dive on Ukraine, Russia. So we have 3 deep dives up so far. So tomorrow we'll be getting into section 4 of it. So if you guys want to learn more about Ukraine, Russia stuff, that's what we're going to be up to tomorrow over here on stream at the same time. And tomorrow we are going to start off with the new ultra right-wing post-coup Ukraine. Basically, what goes on once they win the coup and what goes on there. So, yeah, join us for that. All right. So, yes, the girls are fighting. Russia's still the bigger enemy. Don't worry. Nobody get it twisted. And with that out of the way, let's get into Cuba. This is more entertaining than I could have ever imagined, though. Great wreck. Okay, what's going on in Cuba? Well, the liberals, the conservatives, the left comms are all jumping up to say in tandem Cuba has fallen. Cuba is no longer socialist revolution. None of this is fucking true. They've introduced some market reforms. Why? Because they're being subjected to the largest blockade on the planet. Hello. This is not. They're trying to survive and find a way to import things they need to live. So this article we're looking at today is from PBS. Cuba passes sweeping free market reforms and biggest economic shift since the revolution. I feel like that's maybe a little bit of an editorialization. I feel like the special period of the 1990s was pretty significant, but we'll get into it. Observers on Friday called Cuba's new free market reforms the most sweeping economic overhaul of the island's communist economy since the Cuban Revolution, as the grandson of former President Raul Castro said in an interview that Cuba must seek to move its economy forward. Is the grandson the kooky one? The one who said he wanted to open like a Miami nightclub? The guy who said he wanted to be Donald Trump of Cuba with like the weird fedoras? Is this who they're getting this from? This grandson of Raul Castro? Is this a guy? I don't know. I'm curious. Okay. The 176 measures aim to further decentralize Cuba's state-run economy, which has been left gasping by a tightened embargo under President Donald Trump. Under the island's current economic model, the government largely determines what is produced, who produces it, the prices at which goods are sold, and how the country's resources are allocated. Now, same thing worth noting here. I have two things I want to point out here. The government largely determines 20% of Cuba's economy was privatized business, formerly. And the Cuban government did work with private businesses in a limited capacity. They already had some form of a market system at play. So a great example of this, if you guys remember when we did our Cuba recap after I visited Cuba, there's a whole episode that shows the public bakery on one side of the street and the privatized bakery on the other side of the street. So you get your ration book, you get your free bread, you go to the public bakery, you get your free bread. But if you want, you can also go across the street and you can spend money to get more specialty products from the privately owned grocery store. That's where we saw the guy all in beige who was the Cuban capitalist. So also contrary to what they tell you, yes, you cannot be a communist in Cuba. It's not illegal. 10% of the Cuban people are not communists. 10% of their elected officials are not communists, but 90% are. So 20% of their business already came from privatized business. They already had a market system that existed there. So I think a lot of people weren't familiar with that. So the government largely determines what is produced, who produces it, etc. Correct, but not. It was never fully. They had a market system that still existed there. Now, there was something else I wanted to point out too. When I went to Cuba, I saw Miguel Diaz-Canel. He spoke to us. He said point blank that Cuba would be open to doing market negotiations, basically, to allow Cuban Americans to open businesses in Cuba again. But they would have to be under strict supervision of what kinds of businesses. They couldn't go opening sugar plantations and brothels again like they did under Batista, was basically the rule. Now, Cuba has always said that they would be willing to do that if it meant that the United States would ease up on the blockade against them. They're like, look, we're not going to give you our whole country, but we're open to some things. Cuban Americans can open some businesses here. This was always what Cuba was offering the United States, and the United States was like, no, no, it has to be more. It has to be all or nothing. So hearing this, it actually makes me think the United States gave in to Cuba, because Cuba had these negotiations on the table with the United States for a long time, where they were like, we'll give you this, but we're not doing everything. We're not killing our revolution. So this is really, really interesting to me, because they're positioning it like this came out of nowhere and this is Cuba collapsing. No, Cuba was offering this when I was there. They were actively trying to negotiate with the United States. They're like, we don't mind this. We'll do this. That's fine. We're not giving you all this shit. So the fact that Cuba is now like, okay, yes, the United States was like, that's good enough. If this actually does lead to an easing of the blockade against them, Cuba won. Because that's what they were always offering all along, and the United States was saying now, which is really, really interesting. So if you go back and look at those videos, I think we played like half of Miguel Diaz-Canel's speech. I can't remember if it's included in the half that I recorded or not. It might be in there. You might actually see him saying, of course, we're open to doing these types of reforms, but the United States doesn't want to negotiate because they are not people who stick to their words or whatever. Malrish, are you telling me Trump took the same bad deal that's been offered to every president for 30 years in this circumstance too? I see a pattern emerging. Yeah, pretty much. That's what it sounds like to me. So I don't know. It's just very, very interesting that how this is being positioned. And so again, it's propaganda and how it's being positioned as well. So the plan includes more space for private businesses, imports and exports without state intermediation, free hiring of personnel, authorization for private banks, and investments by Cubans abroad. This is exactly the same deal they'd been offering that the United States said no to. This is... Okay. So it even permits fast food chains to establish themselves on the island. Elements that for decades were listed as pillars of the revolutionary economy, such as the state monopoly on foreign trade and the centralization of productive forces, have been dismantled, said Luis Carlos Batista, unfortunate last name, a Cuban-American political scientist and lawyer who's a doctoral candidate at the University of Salamanca. Okay, so basically, Cuba had been offering some things in exchange for the blockade to be eased for years, and the United States, finally broke down and said, fine, that's good enough. Probably because we're getting our asses handed to us in Iran and didn't want to actually do a full-scale military invasion of Cuba, but needed to look like a win. And now all of the Cuban Americans in the West are positioning this like this was some great failure or collapse on Cuba's end. That's crazy. Like, what? Okay, all right. Yeah, this was always on. They were always willing to do this. This is not... And look, again, and investments by Cubans abroad. They were like, Cuban Americans, you can open some businesses here. But this whole thing came about because the United States was trying to basically take like Cuba to court and allow Cuban Americans to sue for lost wages from businesses they used to own on the island before the revolution. So Cuba's way of negotiating was always like, well, they can come open new businesses on the island if they want. And if you let go of this condition of the blockade, where everybody can just sue us for lost wages or whatever from us kicking out these people who own plantations and shit. So that's where this comes from, where they were like, you can invest in the island. They're missing the whole backstory. The whole backstory is that when Cuba had its revolution, it expelled Western business people, Cuban American, who they would become when they fled to Miami. And they, through the United States, were now setting up these new laws where they could sue anybody who traded in or brought in goods from a Cuban company that was owned by the state that basically had previously been an industry owned by these Cuban Americans now. So they were like, now we can sue you for importing this stuff or whatever, or dealing with this stuff, because that's lost wages that should have been ours, that was taken from us by the Cuban Revolution. So Cuba's negotiating way of being like, stop doing that. That's fucking insane. That's crazy, even that's a law. We will allow those Cuban Americans to do some investment and open up new businesses on the island if they benefit Cubans. That will be our negotiating chip. That was always Cuba's negotiating chip in this. And the United States was like, no. So that's exactly where that came from and why. And of course, none of the articles are mentioning that. So Cuban leaders like former President Raul Castro, who still wield significant power on the island, have sought to push forward more limited reforms on Cuba's economy in the past. Yes. But efforts have run into bureaucratic hurdles. I think it's more that the United States wouldn't negotiate based on these things. In passing the reform, Cuban authorities cautioned that implementation could be slow and noted measures will not be viable if the United States does not lift the energy and financial embargo on the island. So this is literally just a negotiation. This is so fucking stupid. I'm so sorry. I'm like so annoyed. Yeah, this is actually the United States caving to Cuba and not the other way around. This is very, very disturbing to hear how this has been presented this way. Much like Iran, this is the United States caving to Cuba and their pitch, their negotiation deal that has been on the table for years and years and years, that before we were like, no, we want it all or nothing. This is the United States admitting defeat, basically. So yeah, the trade-off has always been that the United States would ease up the blockade. And that's what they're saying here. So, talking about the blackouts, Trump and Marco Rubio acknowledge they are maintaining a policy of maximum pressure to change the island's political and economic system, which has endured for 6 decades despite U.S. pressure. They've not ruled out the use of military force. That alone, also, that's fucking insane. They are saying that they want to actively stop Cuba from being communist. Why do we get a say in the United States in other countries? Why is it just assumed that no country's allowed sovereignty or the right to decide or dictate their economic and political policies for themselves? This is fucking insane that people are just publishing this like it's fine. That's a shit show. That's honestly insane. Can you imagine if it was like Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin acknowledged they are maintaining a policy of maximum pressure to change the United States political and economic system from capitalism into full-blown communism? And they have not ruled out the use of military force. People would be shitting their pants over that statement, right? Liberals would be pissing, crying, screaming, throwing up over that statement. But when it's the United States forcing people to do capitalism, everybody's fine with it, apparently. That's just normal. That's absolutely fucking insane. So in an interview published Friday in the United Arab Emirates-based The National, Raul Guillermo Rodriguez Castro, the grandson of the revolutionary leader, reiterated that Cuba doesn't even slightly represent a threat to the United States. This is true. Rodriguez Castro said in the video interview that Cuba's government was seeking a very Cuban economic model. This is true. So this is not the guy. That other guy, I don't even think he knows the word represent. He's ding-dong brain. Our country must seek a path to economic viability where we must inevitably diversify our economy, diversify the way we do business, and diversify the way we do investments. Oh, I think the other guy was Fidel Castro's grandson. The fedora hat guy, the Miami nightclub guy. Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel said that the proposed measures were based off of analysis of the Vietnamese and Chinese models, communist countries with market economies. Absolutely shocking and should be humiliating that PBS is more accurately able to describe what's going on in Vietnam and China than these left comms out here, these 400 left comms out here. What is likely to pose a significant barrier are U.S. sanctions on Cuba, said Lee Schlenker, a research associate at the Quincy Institute in Washington. With these new measures, along with others that are likely on the table, they will only have a true effect if complemented with a gradual lifting of U.S. prohibitions and sanctions more broadly, he said. Without sanctions being lifted, Schlenker and other analysts said many of the presented measures will be inapplicable, especially due to the limitations and prohibitions imposed on potential investors who are penalized in the U.S. financial system if they do business with Cuba. So, again, really cannot overstate this. This is the United States caving. So look at the way this is worded. They're wording it almost like a doublespeak way. Everything that Cuba has agreed to do that is being positioned as Cuba failing cannot be done under the current conditions of the U.S. blockade. The only way what Cuba has agreed to do, which they acknowledge Cuba has been talking about doing since Raul Castro, not Fidel, but Raul, for years, is if the United States eases the blockade against them. Cuba's been willing to do this. All that needed to happen to make this happen is for the United States to ease the blockade, because legally they cannot do this because of the U.S. blockade, right? So the fact that this is being positioned like Cuba caved and not that the USA caved is frankly insane. Yes, all of the changes can only happen if the blockade is lifted. Cuba has been wanting to make these changes for years, and the United States has not allowed them. So, yeah, the United States is caving, is what's going on here. Beyond that, there are a number of other obstacles that could potentially stymie significant reforms, ranging from mistrust from potential investors to what Batista, the Cuban-American analyst, called slow and inefficient bureaucracy. Despite these obstacles, the Cuban government faces a short window for obtaining results, said Paolo Spadoni, associate professor in the Department of Social Sciences at Augusta University in Georgia. If Cuban leaders hope to survive this unprecedented crisis, it is not an unprecedented crisis. Again, the crisis of the 90s was worse, and the pressure from the United States, they must move quickly with the implementation of reform and achieve tangible results. Again, they have been willing to do this for years and years and years. It literally just depends on the United States easing the blockade. So this is insane. All right. Let's talk about this, chat. This is like massive propaganda. And for some reason, everybody can see that it's propaganda when we talk about the compromises the United States is making with Iran. Why are so many people not seeing the exact same thing playing out with Cuba, especially people who call themselves leftists, who call themselves communists? Why are they not able to understand what's going on here? And I think this is a really good question for us. Why is it common sense that the United States is caving and we're taking an L when we talk about these same types of conditions and negotiations going on with Iran? But it is not common sense, and it is still framed like Cuba has somehow failed, even to people who call themselves communists, leftists, when the same thing happens here. And I would say we have demonstrably more evidence with Cuba that this is the United States taking an L and not the other way around. Because they hate actually existing socialism, as Alfred Tinky says. Exactly. Yeah, so Cuban Americans as well. Yeah, this is absolutely wild. I don't know what you guys have voted on in the chat while we talking about Cuba. But yeah, Chimera Ex Machina. U.S. propaganda knows how to play the defeatist attitude of Western communists who are eager to throw up their arms at every apparent setback, even when the setback could very well be the stepping stone to a stronger socialist construction. Exactly. That's exactly worded so well. Mr. Timmons says maybe also because there's not a visible armed struggle like there is in Iran. That could be as well. There's no visible evidence of the United States getting fucking owned, right? This is all negotiation owning. Ham on pizza. Iran is beating the U.S.'s ass on a global scale in terms of a military battle. Correct. Cuba is doing a negotiation battle. Oh, Virgo's Minecraft world name. Okay, good. I'm glad you guys voted. We expect bad news. We expect it. We do expect communism to be defeated because it has been defeated for so long. So then the next question is, how did Cuba score this win? This is a win for Cuba. They got something they've been trying to negotiate for years. How did they get this win? Is it just because the United States is beleaguered and war-weary with Iran? Or is it also because the United States is seeing the public opinion shift on Cuba? And here's my reference point for asking this question, okay? Remember, when we were going to war, the United States, with Iran, Donald Trump thought that it would be in the bag that we'd be able to reestablish the Pahlavi dynasty there. Remember? That was assumed to be in the bag. He was meeting with the Shah, he was meeting with the Pahlavi dynasty people, right? And then when he realized, like, oh shit, people in Iran hate the Pahlavi dynasty, he realized it wouldn't work, that the Pahlavi dynasty would just get instantly couped there again, and it wouldn't hold. So that's when he backed off. He's like, oh, this guy's not so popular. He started talking to some other maybe groups that could potentially be in leadership positions in Iran who would be advantageous to the United States, right? He couldn't find anybody. And that was a major setback. And after that, that's when we started hearing that technically regime change had already happened in Iran, if you think about it, because we killed the one old Ayatollah Khomeini and we just replaced him with a different Ayatollah Khomeini. And also, that's just a spiritual leader. That's not even their prime minister, their government system, but whatever. But that's when that started to shift. Similarly, think about Machado, right? It seemed like we were all in on Machado, and then all of a sudden Donald Trump realized, like, if this chick gets in a position of power, people fucking hate her. She's just going to get overthrown. So then what happened? Donald Trump was like, well, it can't be Machado. She doesn't actually have the popular support. And then all of a sudden Machado's out here giving over her fucking medal or whatever to Donald Trump in the White House, begging for scraps, right? Because Donald Trump realized that if we install this chick, she's just going to get cooed. If we install the Pahlavi dynasty, he's just going to get cooed. I think it's also possible that Donald Trump realized that if we overthrow the revolution of Cuba, anybody we install is just going to get cooed again by the Cuban government. And then it's going to be proof that they love communism. It's going to be a double L for the United States, right? So this, I think, is what's going on, I think, there. You know? I think that's what's maybe happening. CWAP says, my conspiracy theory is Trump is taking the Cuban mad that reverses dementia, and that's why he's slurring and going on tangents left. I mean, maybe. I think it's very fascinating, though. And I think, like, the public pressure thing does matter. And maybe not so much us. It's important that we get educated, certainly, because it teaches people that people actually do like socialism. They do want communism. But more than that, I think they probably realize these Cuban people are not gonna let them just install a new U.S. military-backed dictator there and sit by and wait for it to happen. They're gonna fight and they're gonna overthrow him, and you're just gonna get Castro 2.0, right? They get re-cooed in 2 business days by the Cuban people, Comrade Thuggin says. Yes, just like happened when we tried to coup Chavez, right? And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing when that happens. So, I think that probably has a lot to do with it too, and I think that's why the United States has taken an L on negotiations with Cuba. And don't get it twisted, no matter how they try to present it in the media, that's us taking an L. They've asked for that for years. Years and years. Miguel Diaz-Canel said they were asking for that when I saw them in person, in February, March, or whatever. If people were upset about these reforms, you could hear the protests from the Keys. That's true. Yeah. Trump administration often wants us to forget goals they used to claim and then move on to the next. Magic Dealer 222 says, yep. Dorian Sapiens, Cubans did a revolution once, they'll do it again. Yeah, this is also why a lot of people think people are oppressed in communist countries. If they didn't like it, they'd have a second revolution. True. That's exactly true. And also, in the DPRK, if you ever watched Loyal Citizens of Pyongyang, that's one of the arguments North Koreans make. They're like, if we were oppressed, why wouldn't we just have a revolution and overthrow our leadership? And I think Americans are, like, so sedated, we forget that people in other countries do that. They have revolutions. They do that, right? If things are that bad, they'll just have a revolution. They will. And we can't imagine that, right? Okay, Ukraine and Cuba coverage was kind of fast. Any chance we have time to also look at Keir Starmer? Yeah, we do. We have 30 minutes left. President Diaz-Canel, Virgo said socialism or death in his speech on these reforms. Yes. And this is why it's so important that we don't let these other fucking communists go run around with their bullshit half-ass misrepresentations of Marxism, somehow claiming that if commodity production and market exists, it's not socialism anymore, or it's not a dictatorship of the proletariat, or it's capitalism. Because they are confusing and muddying the waters to allow American people to believe all these bullshit fake stories. Like Cuba's fallen. Babe, Cuba got what they've been negotiating for years out of this. So yeah, let's look at the Car, if you're still in the chat, can you reshare the Keir Starmer link for us? Otherwise I can Google it. I don't know if Car's still in here or not. I also wish I could find, like, well, I guess that one article did. I want to find the proof that, like, Cuba's been asking for those things, but even that PBS article said they've been asking for it since the days of Raul Castro, and they couldn't do it. Oh, Car's gone? Okay. Aw. Car's gonna miss it. Okay, I'll look. I will look. Car, if you watch the VOD, this is for you in spirit. Alright. Let's see. Should we look at the New York Crimes? Let's see if I have New York Crimes access. Okay, here we go. I got it. Diaz-Canal said Fidel started working on these reforms and postponed them. Yep, exactly. It's been forever. So, Prime Minister Keir Starmer of Britain announced his resignation on Monday, that's today, bowing to a mutiny inside his Labour Party and paving the way for Andy Burnham, the former mayor of Greater Manchester, to likely become the country's next leader. Is the Labour Party, they're like the Democrats for us? Is that who it is? Kid Starver. I forgot his name, Kid Starver. Yes. Okay. All right. Kind of like DSA. Okay, got it. And why is he called Kid Starver again? Refresh me, British comrades. Refresh it for everybody in the chat. Because of... he starved kids. That's right. Okay, yeah, thank you. Been starving kids, innit? Gaza. Okay, great. Thank you. So Starmer said he would remain as the prime minister until new party leader is selected by September, rather than fight to remain in the job he won almost 2 years ago. His decision means that Britain will have its 7th prime minister in a decade, extending a period of political turmoil for the country since it voted to leave the EU in 2016. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That's why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party, Starmer said in front of number 10 Downing Street, his voice breaking with emotion as he thanked his wife for being a rock by his side. Burnham is a popular Labour politician whose resounding victory last week as a special election energized his bid to become Prime Minister. He said on social media on Monday that he would formally seek to replace Starmer, calling the transition a positive process of renewal for our party and our country. Okay, any British comrades who want to give us the scoop on this Burnham guy, please teach us in the chat. Moments later, Burnham received the endorsement of Wes Streeting, former health secretary and another potential challenger in Labour's leadership race, meaning the party will most likely avoid a bruising and divisive contest. We can spend the summer exaggerating small differences, or we can roll up our sleeves and help and deliver the change our party and our country needs, Streeting wrote in a statement referring to Burnham. Okay, new guy, also super pro-Israel. His wife is Iraqi? Oh, did it glitch? It glitched for some people. My wife is Iraq. No, his wife is not Iraqi. His wife is a rock. Rock. I love how we got there, though. Oh, Borlo Raid. Hi, everybody. Welcome, everyone. We're learning about Kid Starver. Welcome. Stinky Raid, hi. Hi. Welcome. I love the stream. Okay. So Starmer became Prime Minister in 2024 when Labour won a large parliamentary majority, and ended 14 years of Conservative Party government. But Labour earned a record low vote share in that election, prompting one analyst to call the victory a loveless landslide. Welcome, Raiders. Starmer's standing was damaged this year by revelations about his decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States, despite his ties to the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. You guys have your own Epstein class out there too, right? That makes sense, because the guy was the prince, and then he's not the prince anymore. He's all Epsteined out. Right. Okay, got it. It was Labour's devastating losses in local elections in May that were the breaking point for many in the party. Yes, I remember you guys were like, oh, they lost like so many elections. What's up with the Green Party, British comrades, versus Labour? So Labour's like your DSA. They're Democratic Socialists, or they're just like progressive liberals. Soap Dems. They're Soap Dems, I'm guessing. So what's up with Green? The Andrew, formerly known as Prince. Okay, so Green feels like DSA. They're Democratic Socialists. And Labour is Social Democrats? Is that fair? Labor's just liberals. They're just liberals. Okay. They're liberals, and the Green Party's like DSA. That's like your Mamdani is your Green Party stuff. Labor are fascists. Yeah, it sounds like it. They're out here starving kids. I don't... They told me only communism was supposed to do that. I don't know. I'm confused. Starmer's standing was damaged. Okay, yes, we talked about that. All right, here's what else we're covering. Burnham arrived in Parliament at 2:30, smiling broadly, formally sworn into office as the Member of Parliament from Makerfield, an electoral district in northwest England. Starmer said he wanted formal nominations to replace him to open on July 9th. A new Labour leader would then be elected by September and become Prime Minister. So if Burnham is the only candidate, he could take over as early as July. Oh, wow. Okay. So on July 9th, we're going to know what's going on with the Prime Minister. Okay. Labour are British blue MAGA, but in red. Got it. They're going for the right. Okay, got it. Yeah, they're your Democratic Party. Gradually became more like liberals. Okay, got it. Thank you for the British. Thank you for the British updates. And it. Governor. I don't know why I always try to do it. I can't do it. I can never do it. I don't know why I try. All right. So this guy, Burnham, what are the significant differences, British comrades in the chat, between Burnham and Starmer? They're both pro-Israel. Gufner. Oh, I'm French again. Interesting. Are you Polish? Do we have any? What are the differences between these people? Burnham versus Starmer. Also, that means that you guys have been getting, in England, all those super fucked new anti-Palestine laws and shit under your liberals. I get it. We got a whole genocide under our liberals. We got a whole fucking genocide under our liberals. I get it out here. All right. The Economist is like, we love Keir Starmer. The Economist is real mad about this. They're like, it's not going to go well. Uh-oh. Very little difference. People hate him less. Not much of a difference. Yeah, we default to Cockney for British. I understand there's bougier British accents, but I don't know what they are. I feel like if Fresno had a British accent, it would be Cockney. Okay, so before he became Prime Minister, Keir Starmer's favorite weapon was disgust. Okay, Economist. Let's see if we can archive page those. This is crazy. This writing. Everything is in it, bruv. Yeah, that's how you guys talk, right? That's what you said. You Discord myself. Ah, thank you, Virgo. Yeah, if Fresno had a British accent, it would definitely be Cockney. Definitely. That's how I have to explain things to people. My partner Bobby was very, very surprised that in Fresno, that it was so similar to, like, the Rust Belt, like Detroit, like, abandoned kind of vibes, but, like, cool. Yeah. Who's Maggie Smith? Is Julie Andrews The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music? Orange Crab 392. Feeling a little better about Cuba. I'm worried about them. Yeah, I worry a lot about Cuba. This made me feel, I was like, oh, this is, of course, just capitalism spin. We won. No matter what happened, we won. Don't worry. Even we lost. Yep. The Hills Are Alive. Okay. McGonagall. Okay. All right. Before he became Prime Minister, Keir Starmer's favorite weapon was disgust. He was disgusted by the lies of Boris Johnson, disgusted by the tolerance that Jeremy Corbyn, his predecessor as leader of the Labour Party, showed towards anti-Semitism, disgusted by the effects of 14 years of chaotic conservative rule. Okay, now, Brits in the chat, help me again. Jeremy Corbyn, people sometimes ask me what I think about him. Is he like, do people in England like him? Is he like more, Corbyn's a socialist. Is he actually a socialist? He's like a Mamdani. Oh, okay, got it. Okay, so this is why everybody's like, do you like Corbyn? Do you like Corbyn? And I'm like, It's the same reason. They're like, do you like Mamdani? Do you like Mamdani? I'm like, I don't, it's fine. It's not me. I don't know. It's something. Okay, got it. He got kicked out of the Labour Party for being too far left. Low-key, they're Bernie Sanders. Okay, got it. I do think Zanity and communism was just referencing something somebody said earlier in the chat, if I remember correctly. Okay, he was slandered as an anti-Semite because he supported Palestine. We all used to go through that. We're all used to that. Okay. So he never had a plan for what to do when the disgust turned back on him. And that, perhaps more than anything, such as his lack of charisma, his U-turns, his lapses in judgment, is what led him to resign on June 22nd after less than 2 years in the job. He remains in office for the few weeks until his successor is formally chosen. A little more left than Mamdani. Okay. Definitely more left than Bernie. Good to know. At the last general election in 2024, Sir Keir won a landslide victory by arguing that all Britain's woes were the fault of Tory incompetence and venality. I've heard this playbook before. Unfortunately, it turned out he really believed it. The Prime Minister was seemingly surprised to discover that the country suffers from deep-rooted and difficult problems, and disturbed that very soon voters were blaming him. This is like peak Democratic Party. He was taking notes. Little did he know that would work in the United States. You wouldn't change anything. And the American people would be like, thank you, it's better now. You just believe it off vibes. But apparently the British, not as effective as a technique there, so he didn't know. Okay. Sir Keir, a distinguished lawyer who did not enter politics until his 50s, had never set out a coherent picture of what he believes in or exactly why he wanted to run the country, just like the Democrats. He started making blunders almost as soon as he took office, such as scrapping a popular winter fuel handout for pensioners and admitting he accepted free gifts of clothing and football tickets from wealthy donors. What kind of clothes? As a clothing designer, I'm curious. What kind of drip is worth your reputation as the leader of a whole country? The previous failure to rally his party around a Starmerite vision meant few were willing to go back to him when times got tough. The opinion polls got worse on worse. Well, yeah, what clothes was he wearing, chat? I gotta look this up. Okay, what are we talking about? Okay, he received clothes with this guy? This guy's drip cost him his reputation? I expected more drip. I expected better. More than 16,000 pounds. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm industry pilled or industry brain rotted, maybe. 10,000 pounds in October 2023, 6,000 in February this year. Clothing for a busy election campaign. I mean, $2,400 for glasses? For glasses. I'm in the wrong market. I need to be making shit for rich people. What do you mean $2,400 for glasses? Oh my god. Okay. This is what cost him his reputation. Cool. He was a distinguished lawyer who did not enter politics until his 50s, had never set out a coherent picture, etc., etc. All right, so he's taken all the clothes. His authority within the Labour Party dwindled. He found himself blocked by his own MPs when he attempted to curb welfare spending. Why did he do this? When last autumn, the biggest crisis of all erupted, the discovery that Sir Keir's pick for British ambassador to Washington, Peter Mandelson, had kept up a close friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, a billionaire sex offender. I like that they explained it. With Jeffrey Epstein. For anybody being like, who's that? They're like, don't worry, we got you covered. That's a billionaire sex offender. I think we all know who Jeffrey Epstein is. But more than that, imagine working your whole life, living your whole life, you die, and this is how you're remembered. A billionaire sex offender. Also bold to assume every billionaire is not a sex offender. The Prime Minister found himself isolated. This is why Sir Keir's resignation was a long time coming. Speaking in front of 10 Downing Street, he rightly pointed to the transformation he had wrought in his party, taking it back to the centre ground after Mr. Corbyn's socialist dogma. But a choked up Sir Keir admitted, the question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. The party's answer, he concluded, is no. Wow. All right. All right. I think we get it. The New York financier stubborn streak considered taking on Burnham. His allies called the challenger a joker for his policy flip-flopping, complaining that much of his agenda is indistinguishable from the status quo, as to be everything that Keir says, only Andy's wearing a polo shirt when he does it. Well, now we gotta see this guy's shit. Andy Burnham. Oh, he's hipper. Yeah, I see. This guy, I would believe, he's got a t-shirt with a sport coat, so that's how you know he's young and hip. I might believe this guy spent that much money on clothes. I'm not really sold on him either. I'm not really convinced. Oh, okay. Thank you, Virgo. Should we just jump into it? Let's jump into it. 5 minutes on Venezuela. Let's talk about Venezuela now. Let's flip-flop, everybody. Let's switch. Virgo's got to go. We're going to talk about MAP, though. Let's talk about this. Let's get into MAP. Let's hard pivot off of news, because Virgo's about to leave, into MAP. Okay, Virgo says, thoughts on Venezuela. We're thinking about switching Venezuela. Now, we had switched Venezuela to defiant. We kept them at defiant. And the reason we did this is because they recently worked with the U.S. military on an operation to murder a man in Venezuela who had been accused of drug trafficking. Virgo says they've been losing hundreds of innocent fishermen by direct bombings. The president was violently kidnapped. We can't expect them not to respond to strategic retreats to resist further violence. They haven't changed their government, just made a couple of concessions. Nothing that's been taken from the people in terms of state control. We can't fall victim to great man theory regarding Maduro, but Venezuela is still fighting a part of the resistance. Okay, so I do like this. This is why we decided they weren't cucked. But my counter argument for this is that they are not in a position to actively be the resistance anymore because they have taken such setbacks, right? So my argument is, while they are still firmly in our camp, they are in less of a position they have no leverage. And leverage is what makes you a fighter, unfortunately. So even if they're under a dictatorship of the proletariat, that's the real question. Does having a dictatorship of the proletariat automatically make you the resistance? Their oil is controlled by the U.S. I think that, to me, it's more about having the means to fight back. The means to resist, right? And so that's what's really interesting to me as a consideration. I think that it is a heavy factor. Changed Colombia. Colombia's cucked. I think changing Colombia to cucked is good. Hold on, let's do this in order of operations. So let's do a vote. Let's do a vote on Venezuela. I'm going to run a poll. We'll do a little vote. I think, I think we do understand and are sympathetic to what's going on in Venezuela. So let's do the poll on that. You think Colombia's cucked. All right. So now, running the poll on that. While the poll runs on Venezuela, get your votes in. See if we change that. Colombia, recent election, very, very obviously. The United States has won. I would say for now they're cucked. We don't know if they're cucked maxed yet. We'll see what happens there rapidly. They are currently cucked, though. The United States has won an election in Colombia. So. Electoralism. There was a leaked audio from Lula on G7 saying something: "I was never a leftist. The path to the future is centrist." The poll is compromised. What do you mean? Oh, can you vote a lot with your points? Is that why? Okay, fuck the poll. This poll is not counting. Hold on. Oh, I can't do it. I can't change it. Well, you know what? Let's see where I go. Let's see what happens. Twitch Electoral College. It really is the Electoral College. We don't accept American-style democracy. The rich make all the rules. Spend those Pendleton points. Oh, look at Venezuela on its own. Well, we're gonna wait on that. Bourgeois democracy in the chat. The Pendleton Points oligarchs are buying the votes. Well, while that happens, we gotta wait for that to go before we can do the proper vote. What do we have for thoughts besides cucked and cucked maxing? What do we want to do for cucked? What instead of that? Do we have suggestions for different terms? Points aren't gathered by watching stream. It is your labor. They're like labor vouchers, chat. They're stream labor vouchers. Some people wanted to change the cucked terminology. So I'm fine with that. I've always thought we could change that if we wanted. But I need better options for it. Because it has to be a term that communicates some sort of humiliation ritual of some kind, or defeat. It can be reluctant. I don't know that they're cuck maxing quite yet. We'll see what happens. Probably in the next week or so, we'll watch them change. What if we do... what does anybody have any recommendations for other terminology? Cucks enjoy it, though! We had some complaints. I do think the cucks would enjoy it. Bootlicker. Imperialist dogs instead of cucked. Brat for cucked brat. Okay, brat is easy. That brat's an easy one. Brat, I think we'll all understand. So then it's just cucked and cuck maxing. Imperialists, vassals, neo-colonies, colonies. Vassal. Whipped. Pet. Bootlicker, though, implies wants, desire. Some countries are cucked against their will. They're just like, fuck. Compromised. I like compromised. I like owned. We could do internet newspeak. We could do owned, and then we could do PWNED. Compromised is good. Yeah, pwned. Okay, alright, this poll does not count. I'm reporting the poll. Late epic trolled. That's what it is. We gotta make cuckbacks to late epic trolled. Cucked, we're just gonna do a little picture of a fedora. That's what it is. Maybe instead of cucked, it's millennial heart. Chungus. Yeah, maybe this is it. We'll do this for now. Like epic ponage is my vote. For now, we'll do what did somebody say? Somebody said banned for reactionary behavior. Where was it? Somebody said something, now I can't find it. Oh, it's the end of an era. Compromised. What if we call it mised maxing? That's more fun. Yeah. You're right. Trumping their shit. Mised Max. Okay, there we go. We still get a little us in there. A little us. All right, we're doing a real poll on Venezuela. I also agree about the need to defend AES. That's why they're defiant still for me. I do think defiant's a good place to place them, just because if they're allowing their territory to be an outpost for U.S. military operations, that to me is like the definition of like, but I'm open. I'm always open to a defense of actually existing socialism in any capacity. One minute vote. Defiance or resistance? Resistance being to me, the militarized capacity to fight back, right? I know, we are testing Virgo. Everybody's testing Virgo. Yeah, no matter what, Poland's still Poland. As current events today have shown with Poland is really Polanding it up right now. And I gotta say, Poland, they weren't wrong. They weren't wrong with that one. They were wrong to be like, we're still gonna continue supporting Ukraine materially. But we're real mad. They are not acknowledging that they're naming their army after Nazis who slaughtered ethnic Poles in their borders. Think. Mised maxing. They're compromised maxing. All right. Everybody's voting for real. Yep, defiant. We're going to keep them defiant for now, but I do like Virgo's argument. You're not going to participate in MAP anymore? Really? Aw. I feel like the thing about MAP. You find this very disappointing? Well, let's, democratic centralism. It is democratic centralism. That's true. That is true. Here's the thing. The map is flexible. The map is not permanent. The map shifts along with us. It's a vibes-based map. However, news comes out, we update things. Democratic centralism does have its ups and its downs. That's true. That is true. I think that I will maintain my support of socialism. Yes. I mean, I do think this is an important argument, generally speaking. And, why... I don't know. So my thoughts on Cuba are a little different because they're economic reforms, not military actions. That's why I have a different impression, but also why I still would not put Venezuela as compromised, as we're going to say it now, because they are doing what they feel they need to do to survive and stave off even worse fates, and that's really important to acknowledge. I feel like not having Larry here is taking away from the discussion. Maybe we can schedule a more formal Venezuela convo, because that would be nice to have Larry there. That would be nice. Maybe we can organize it. Or maybe we could have a full convo in the Discord to give it more time and attention. I agree with Raccoon Child. I agree. The militarized action thing to me is the only reason. We could have a whole Venezuela day. We could also create a category for Venezuela that's not derogatory, like Poland, since we're having a hard time coming to a conclusion about it. Feels weird that resistance entails the ability to fight back. Well, because you think about it this way, it's this is all about your camps, so it's about your geopolitical agreements with each other. So the way originally I conceived of this was, if the United States was going to show up at some country's doorstep and be like, knock, knock, we're taking over, who would show up and say no? Who would materially resist them, right? So the argument for having Venezuela be resistance is that they're a dictatorship of the proletariat. They're communists. They're socialists, right? They're socialists. They had a socialist revolution, and they're doing their best to survive. We could just make AES a category all of its own. But resistance is not all the AES. I mean, the map was always going to be imperfect, right? Right. But the people's not the government. So that's the main thing. This goes off of with the government. So it's geopolitics. So it's how the government of a country is interacting with other governments around the world, right? Guantanamo Bay is a thing, but that's not technically Cuban soil. So that's not like a military base in Cuba. It's like, isn't it? Like, technically it's like U.S. soil or something like this. Over a map. I feel like, the fighting over the map is very us. This is the scheduled, and what's worse is this is the scheduled allocated time to fight over the map. Venezuela is currently the only country with a dictatorship of the proletariat. Yes, that is defiant. So maybe it is true that having a dictatorship of the proletariat automatically makes you the resistance. Map breeds dialectics. I think it's positive. Well, so then the question is all AES automatically the resistance? Maybe it is. I think I'm getting convinced. I think I'm coming around as we talk about it. Hold on. Let's do a poll. Well, because we put Laos and Vietnam as the resistance for that reason. So it's not really fair, I guess, to have them as the resistance and not Venezuela. Are we saying Cuba has more of a capacity to physically engage with the empire than Venezuela? Yes, and Cuba also, though, has a history of sending soldiers to help fight for actually existing socialism everywhere. So, like, in Angola, Cuba sent soldiers. Like, they send their military to other parts of the world to help fight for socialism. Actually existing socialism. Yeah. I think I'm getting convinced that there is a case. I think I might be coming around on this. See, when we word it like this, is AES automatically the resistance? We say yes. So, I think you're right. I think we put it back. I think we put it back, and unless something really significant happens, economic existence or resistance against imperialist expansion also counts. Chimera ex machina says. And that's actually a really good point. And Iran has really made that clear as well. And China's made that clear. China doesn't send military. China does its resistance through economic measures. You've heard them described as more Sokdom. Is that wholly wrong? I think that's wrong. Yeah, I think I don't know why anybody would say that. I think they're definitely Bolivarian revolution. They declared it a revolution. Chavez tried to do a coup of the last guy who was a U.S.-backed dictator. They expelled the Americans there. He was like, we are now doing socialism. Yeah, so I would say they were a dictatorship of the proletariat. Yeah, like China was the resistance as soon as revolution occurred there. I think that's true. I think that's really, really true. Unfinished, nothing's ever finished, exactly. No, Sweden is not AES. No. I just read it. I just read it, Kabashi. Okay. I think that this is our rule then. As long as you have a dictatorship of the proletariat, you're trying to survive in the world. We will mark you the resistance. We will. And economic resistance is just as important as military resistance. You know, chat? I get convinced. I'm a simple man. You make good argument, I listen. You make good arguments, I listen. AES stands for actually existing socialism. So this would be mostly Marxist-Leninist places. Okay. All right, so we got that. We updated that. We updated Colombia. We updated the names on the maps. Chat, we're being very efficient, actually. And what's next is getting into Nepal, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India. What do we want to do here? Do Sri Lanka? I think we do India. I think we do India today. The discussion is right. I do like the discussion because it gets us to really think about things, right? It's an exercise. It's a prompt. It's a prompt. The map is a prompt. So, with that in mind, let's get into talking about where India falls on the map. Right? I learned a lot from these things too. Okay. So, India. Let's pull up what we have been using to look at everything. Obviously, last week we talked about Pakistan, which had a lot to do with India and what was going on there. As it was partitioned from India. Oh my god. So look at this chat. India does not appear in the NED report at all. Very fascinating. We got nothing going on there. Top 16 global north countries: Russia, China, India. Okay. Table of figures. Global north rings. Global south in 6 groupings. Actual world military spending. India has the 4th largest military spending in the world. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Also, look at this map, or this chart. Look at this chart. Top 16 countries with the largest military spending in the world. Oh, Kolkata, the fascists have reached the city. Interesting. Look at this graph. Look at United States military spending up here, and then China, the next one down. And then Russia. This is where we're telling you Russia's the problem. Where's North Korea on this map? I don't see it. Do you guys see the DPRK on here? I don't see it. I see South Korea on this map. I don't see the DPRK. Turkey would be below Israel and not on the list. Yeah, I think Turkey's... I don't really know their capacity for military spending, TBH, right now. Doesn't India have that one small section whose communist names their kids Lynn and Nina? I think I saw that too, yeah. You can't even see the end of the... Yeah, I know, it's wild. The thing, too, that I always try to remind people is that this spending, though, is spending under capitalism, which means you're getting really fucked up, inefficient spending on, like, broken airplanes and shit, too. Erdogan, I'm very interested in what's going on in Turkey. I'm like very locked in. I'm like, all right, this is a major shift, you know? Like Turkey might have to join. I don't know. Turkey's on something. Yeah, 47% spending for the U.S. military is toilet paper. Yeah. India communism is kooky. Okay. Let's get into what's going on here. We got the maps, we got the graphs, we got the figures. All right. Country name India, military spending. Yes. Okay. Fictitious capital. This is really interesting. This is a great document, by the way. I love this document. So they talk about fictitious capital as it applies here. New non-aligned. Grouping 4. So they're considered non-aligned along with Mexico and Turkey. Very interesting. they voted to abstain on both the Gaza ceasefire and the Russia withdrawal, which is interesting. Turkey, confused. Turkey, opportunistic. I think that's the one. Turkey is very opportunistic. I almost like respect, like they're on a hustle, you know? They're like an influencer who's pivoting back and forth between MAGA and blue MAGA to make money. They're like, oh fuck, this isn't working. What do you guys have going on over there? Can we come in over there? That's Turkey right now. You're back from being gulagged. We did map. We made some changes. Now we're talking about India. All right. India. Let's see. What's going on? I know that India has this like super conservative government situation going on right now. I do know about that. Yeah, they have problems with like nationalism, like right-wing stuff going on domestically. But what I don't know is where it fits in to their foreign policy. I'm not really sure about their foreign policy right now. Hindutva is what we want to talk about here. Okay. This is going to be Hindu nationalist political ideology espoused by the RSS, the VHP, and the ruling party, which is the BJP. Okay. It borrows ideas and concepts from European fascism. Okay, I was right. Okay, yes. All right, I knew this. Okay. It was affiliated with Italian fascism and Nazism during the interwar period of the Second World War. Okay, I knew this, but I didn't know how much. Spiritually British. Yes. Okay. So, Hindutva has been described as a variant of right-wing extremism and almost fascist in the classical sense, adhering to a concept of homogenized majority and cultural hegemony. Some analysts dispute the identification of Hindutva with fascism and suggest that it's more of a form of ethnic nationalism. The Fascism of Our Times. These are all books that we don't have links to. Okay. I'm trying to find Hindutva versus Hinduism. Oh, Hindustan Times. Okay. Let's take a look at this. This is from 2017, but it's going to talk to us a little bit about it. You have a recommendation for guest speaker for India. Interesting. They also wage a colonial war against Kashmir. What if India is Poland? Just asking questions. What if India is Poland? It's difficult to pinpoint the exact date of origin of this brand of Hindutva or Hindu nationalism, but the first half of the 1920s is usually considered the beginning. In the early 1920s, Vinayak Damodar Savarkar wrote Essentials of Hindutva. He differentiated between Hinduism and Hindutva. Hinduism, according to him, was only part of it. The Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh was set up in 1925. Historians have written of how in the 1920s and 1930s Hindu nationalists projected those different from themselves as enemies. While some present-day Hindu nationalists have at times claimed to use the term Hindu to denote all people who believe in respect or follow the eternal values of life that have sprung up in Bharat rather than a religion, they contradict the claim that when those eternal values are given a religious slant. Okay. Read Fascism 1. They don't have net spending because the net considers a democracy, therefore grants are restricted there. Got it. That makes sense. Arun Aru is a Hindu comrade. He's very knowledgeable about the South Asian region. Okay, good to know, Kubashi. Okay. Alright. Huh. Hindutva has nothing to do with Hinduism as a faith or religion, but rather as a badge of cultural identity and an instrument of political mobilization. Right. So this is the leading party currently of India. Huh. Okay. So it is conservative politically. We've got that. What are they doing in the world? Has Trump succeeded in making Vance the face of America's humiliation by Iran? Trump genuinely likes India. Interesting. India has set down the red lines for the U.S. Now seal the trade deal. The U.S. is India's largest economic partner. This is from June 22nd. This is from today. The last year and a half has seen strains in the India-U.S. relationship over trade, Russian oil, and claims of American mediation during Operation Sindoor. Despite high-level engagement, including U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's recent visit to India, restoring trust between the two sides remains a work in progress. India is not only a country whose diplomacy has been... a country whose diplomacy has been challenged dealing with a mercurial U.S. President Donald Trump. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni's once warm relationship with Trump has soured over Rome's reluctance to support Washington in its war with Tehran. Ukraine's Zelensky and Canada's Mark Carney are no strangers to this predicament. Trump's maverick style of statecraft has forced allies and rivals alike to recalibrate their approach to Washington. It's in this context that the meeting between Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi in their first 16 months on the sidelines of the G7 summit last week assumed significance. The Prime Minister welcomed the progress made in peace efforts in West Asia and underlined that mutual trust is the most important strategic asset today. They're allying with Macron. So that's the G7. So they are allying with the G7 countries. Okay. This is economic stuff. Modi's approach to the G7, crediting Trump for his peace efforts while working towards a trade deal to limit tariffs, appears to be the most effective course available. Okay. Interesting. India lost its edge with Trump. This is Fox News. So this is the MAGA perspective. Modi is a supremacist Hindi. Yeah. He's very, very fashy. I know that. But what does that mean about how they're aligning politically? Like, are they subservient to the G7 nations, or are they Poland? You know? This is my question. Aligned with Israel. White nationalism, right? India has typically been favored. Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush all made visits during their time in office. Okay, so Trump announced he secured a ceasefire between India and Pakistan. The fighting had come over India-administered Kashmir, was the worst in decades. Yes, we talked about that last week. You think they're Poland? I think they're Poland too. They are, in fact, doing their own whole shit. There was a huge divide between India and Trump over tariffs. That seemed to sour the relationship quite a bit, Mallory says. I kind of feel like this. Yeah, I feel like we got to keep it Poland. I think they might be Poland. I think, Mr. Timon, you're right. I don't think we should go down that route. Trump unfortunately said the May 2025 clash ended because of him personally. That upset India a lot. They made that known. India is among the countries most indirectly affected by the strategic fallout from the Iran war, facing economic pressure and mounting energy concerns. India is the Poland of Asia. I think India is the Poland of Asia. I think it's the Poland of Asia. Does anybody have any main objections to Poland defying? We had a very Poland day. This is my instinct hardcore. India, Poland, Croatia. But didn't they say in India we don't have the communist-led region anymore? Isn't that We don't have that anymore. It's Kerala, right? Yeah, I think we don't have. I think that's new. Here, look. Yeah, India loses its last left-wing government after 5 decades. Kerala. Yeah, this happened last month. This is really new. So you're not crazy. But this is new. We don't. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't a poll for us to talk about. That's true. We almost talked about it. Mhm. 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 Yeah. Yeah, I think India is a major. The history of India is obviously very, very major. Being taken over by the British and the division of Pakistan we got into a little bit last week, but it is a lot. So I think that for now, look, the whole designation about Poland is that they are doing their own thing. They are not people politically we would agree with. But we wouldn't necessarily say they are a G7 nation or subservient to the G7 nations. So that was the need for a Poland category. So I do think that India falls into that category. They're doing their own thing. We don't agree with them politically. They're not necessarily subservient to the West, though. They have their own kind of orbit and pull, right? Are they still a U.S. lapdog, though? Because if they are a U.S. lapdog, we could classify them as compromised. So that's the ultimate question. How much of a U.S. lapdog are they? Pinning that one. What do we think about how subservient to the U.S. they are? Because they used to be more in the past, it seems like. But now, yes, it feels like maybe less. But, because they're like beefing. They're kind of beefing with the USA. Does anybody have anything? I'm trying to think of like what we can look up. Let's see if they're like... Okay, so we have this from 11 hours ago. The U.S. clears $482 million support package for India's Apaches. The U.S. has formally notified the proposed sale of sustainment, support services, and related equipment. That's just a sale, though. Okay, so that's not really... The government of India has requested to buy long-term sustainment supports. The proposed sale will support the foreign policy and national security objectives of the U.S. by helping to strengthen the U.S.-Indian strategic relationship and improve the security of major defense partners, which continue to be an important force for political stability, peace, and economic progress in the region. They did immediately report the Iranian sub to the U.S. Israel after they visited. Are they compromised? Are they submissive? Have they been dominated? Five days ago, The Diplomat wrote about this. India-U.S. relations. Too important to fail, too complicated to trust. The killing of Indian sailors by the U.S. military adds to the web of complications where the structural foundations haven't changed. Okay. Interesting. Compromise. We think compromised. We think compromised. We don't think they're Poland. They're not strong enough to be Poland. All right, let's see. India's current relationship with the United States is extremely difficult to classify in conventional geopolitical terms. Okay, we're not alone, chat. We have the same analysis as The Diplomat, at least. It is neither an alliance in its traditional form, nor does it fit into the category of outright rivalry. It's Poland! This is crazy. And is not a friendship marked by strategic intimacy. The U.S.-India relationship occupies an awkward and ambiguous space. The recent conflict in the Middle East has only exacerbated underlying tensions caused by sharply different regional priorities. Nevertheless, the first issue is that the question is Americentric. This is why I consider them Poland. Okay. Anyone looking for a convenient story of an emerging alliance or collapsing one would also be disappointed. Okay, this looks good. I need to take a bathroom break, but then I'm going to come back in 5 minutes and we're going to read into this. Talk amongst yourself if you have strong arguments in favor of India being Poland or India being compromised. Okay, chat, I'm back. And I have grapes. I'm back. What did we learn? Does anybody have any interesting conversations while I was gone? We're going to jump off soon, but I'm going to go a little late for this. Yeah, my partner got them. The cotton candy flavored ones. Yeah. Okay, what do we think? Compromised. We're going to have another poll. Okay, let's keep reading this really fast. All right. Between June 8th and June 11th, U.S. military forces operating in proximity to the Strait of Hormuz attacked a number of ships traveling throughout the sensitive region. One of these ships was the oil tanker MT Setabello, which had 24 Indian nationals on board. Unfortunately, 3 Indians died as a result of the U.S. military action. I love the passive language. 3 of them just died. The U.S. didn't kill them. They just died. Okay. In a separate incident, another Indian sailor died of medical complications independently, and his body rotted away on the stranded ship owing to the U.S. blockade, which made it impossible to evacuate him. Wow, gnarly. Hi Julia, welcome. Yeah, mysteriously, if you work for the United States, you just die. or with the United States, or near the United States, or like in an area where the United States is doing things. Polandia. Okay. Julia, we're talking about India. Okay. And I'm eating grapes. Poland. When the Ministry of External Affairs of India summoned the U.S. charged the affairs regarding the matter, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio replied that the United States would not allow the illicit transport of Iranian oil. He added that all commercial vessels should immediately comply with orders from U.S. forces. Yay. Everybody follow Julia. Okay. The American reaction has angered many in New Delhi, and for good reason. The death of Indian citizens, whether intended or not, by a country that is projected as a strategic partner is not easy to brush aside with mere legal arguments and diplomatic platitudes. Okay, so the Commie Jesus says, India has over time been attempting to divest from Russian oil to comply with the U.S., so we think compromise. Oh, that's a big deal then. Yeah. All right. For many Indians, the first comparison that comes to mind is China's reaction to the 1999 NATO attack on its embassy in Belgrade, which killed 3 Chinese nationals. At the time, the Chinese could do little to stand up to the United States, but they still managed to get Bill Clinton to apologize publicly and pay $32.5 million in compensation. So far, India has succeeded at neither. They're subservient for sure. The difference is not lost on either of them. The innocent raises a legitimate question. Does India's much vaunted strategic autonomy give New Delhi any leverage at all? So they're saying that they're strategically autonomous. But it's dependent on Russian military equipment, U.S. advanced technology, Chinese manufactured parts, and Gulf energy imports. It's also wrong, though, to interpret these developments as signs of an unraveling India-U.S. partnership. The foreign ministers of Australia, India, Japan, and the U.S. emphasized practical cooperation and strategic continuity in an area of sustained great power competition. I think they're compromised. I think they are. I don't think they have enough power. They can't even get an apology. We don't respect them as an equal at all. I know, the DPRK is such an inspiration. Okay. U.S. offers India a 30-day waiver for buying Russian oil as Iran war deepens energy supplies. Yeah, they're compromised. Totally. They are. Okay. Poland remains the only Poland on the map. It's pretty wild. Is it this one? No. Here we go. Compromised. I think this is correct. It's usually compromised. It's usually compromised. All right, we're saving it. Okay, guys. Sorry, my grapes were loud. I want a little snacky. Juice is the vibe. It is. It is. Everything comes down. Juice. Juice. Cuba also, but yeah. It's revisionist. Yeah, I know. It's like, I don't even think it's fucking revisionist, because the whole point of Marxist-Leninism, right, is that you apply the ideology, you apply these, oh, sorry, hold on. There we go. You apply these principles to the unique material conditions going on where you are, right? So I just like, how is it revisionist, right? I don't know. It's crazy. The qualifications for being compromised would mean that you're in like a subservient state to the G7 nations, so that your foreign policy is affected by basically not like normal diplomacy or international engagements, but by being dominated and basically told what to do and living like in fear of stepping out of line too much of the G7 nations. So the oil thing is significant. The fact that the United States just literally slaughtered civilians from India, and India couldn't even get an apology from them about that. This is a country that's subservient to the U.S. and our interests, I think. Yeah. Marx would be a revisionist. Yep. Yes, Julia, we were talking about this morning. There's a subset of Western left who only respect and like dead communists because they cannot fathom actually winning. Exactly. Exactly that. Okay, an important okay, I'm looking. Picture. Cuba's capital is now their traitors. She gives me so heated. Yeah, exactly. It's fucked up. It's really, really fucked up. It's crazy. Also, we talked about this earlier too, Julia, but it's like, those are the same proposals Cuba was trying to get the United States to agree to under Raul Castro. That's us winning. That's like, Cuba was trying to get the U.S. to agree to those things. Because to agree to those things, the U.S. would have to reduce the blockade, and the United States said no for years. So Cuba, the U.S. caved to Cuba, but that's not how these Western communists are talking about it, right? Yeah. Yes, their international relations are dictated by the U.S. Exactly. Yep. Okay, wait, I'm looking. Mauish. Aww. So cute. Puppy. Oh, Mauish puppy. I have Zay here. Look, I've started doing the pillow for her, and now she doesn't even claw the curtains. Look at that. So cute. Little Zay. She's sweet. All the pets. Yeah, Western communists surrender even when they win. Cuba won. That's what's crazy. I need to make a video explaining that. I don't know how to make it catchy though. It's one of those videos that get like 400 views, you know? Because videos for other communists don't tend to do well. It's got to be a video for non-communists for it to do well. It is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, with so many of these people out here calling themselves communists, throwing communism under the bus. Yeah, the leftists have a fetish for losing, exactly. America keeps saying they beat Cuba, but they didn't. Oh, Donald Trump. Donald Trump is acting like he beat Cuba, but he didn't. And here's why. Anything with Donald Trump, they react to. I'm going to do that. Lib versus leftist. That's actually a really good idea. I'll do a lib versus leftist one. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. I'm going to send you somewhere. Should we send you Larry? Does everybody want to go to Larry? Do we want to do a Larry pop over? Larry's camping this week. Again, Larry camps a lot. Inspiring. Rob. Is Rob on? Is Rob on? Who's on? I'm going to go to Tank 2. I'm going to see who's on.
I talked with a bunch.
It's Rob. It's me and Rob. We got half and half, me and Rob. We'll send you all to Rob.
Yes.
Oop, no, not Paul. Rob. Rousseau. Let's go. Big stream. All right, everybody. I've got you going. And I hope you all have a great rest of your Monday. Tomorrow, Topics Tuesday, we're going to get back into Ukraine, Russia. We're going to do the deep dive. Very relevant to today's news. We covered 3 topics today, chat. We're on fire. All right, sending you off now. Love you all. See you tomorrow.